Hi everyone. I'm really happy and excited today because there's so many of you here that I deeply connect with. It feels like a reunion of sorts. Um, and welcome to the Oracle Speak. And I just wanted to start today with sharing what the Oracle Speak is because this is the third episode. and I think I started this very spontaneously. Aakanksha and I were sitting one day and we were like, hey, you know what? We should do this. And in an hour, we launched it. We didn't know what was really happening. It was like a shot in the dark. And all we knew is that it would culminate into something. And then we'd continue to hold it and through the changes and emergence. Find what needs to happen. And here we all are. Just going to share a bit about who all are going to be sharing today with us. So, just a rough um, timeline. We're going to start with Shachi, who is our poetic astrologer, and she will be giving us cosmic updates about what we can expect in the next 30 days, the astrological transits, and how we can integrate that into our lives. Then I'll be stepping in with some tarot and helping us solidify how to use those insights into daily practical living. And then we're going to have Frank, who's going to be sharing cosmic updates and his sense on what's coming up. And then we'll have Neetu, who will tune in and see what the earth has to say to us, what's in our bodies. And yeah, and that's the format for today. Aakanksha was unwell today, so she couldn't make it, and we will miss her. And she's here with us energetically, and we hope that she gets better soon. And yeah, so that's roughly what we're doing today. And before we begin, I just want to say that the three words that we took along with the Oracle Speak is earth, emergence, and embodiment. And right now, today, when we're doing episode 3, it feels like it makes sense and it's coming together because, in some way, all of us have spent time listening to the earth. We always do, but right now it feels like I know all of us who are on this call, and we all have been listening closely to what the earth has been saying to us, saying things to us through our dreams, through our bodies, through our intuition, through our relationships, and through synchronicity. And how can we truly incorporate that to meet um, our purpose? How do we move ahead? How do we release what's holding us back? And do that from a space of recognizing that we live in a time of extreme uncertainty and change and transition collectively, globally. And notice that this wave of uncertainty, and especially with the pandemic, there are so many real challenges that we're facing. And how do we come together in that context? And embodiment, because really our work is to be embodied. It is to come into this present moment. It is to come into our light selves and really recognizing who we are. So this is going to be a space where we're going to come together to have conversations about these things and really reclaiming and decolonizing wisdom that comes through us intuitively, through our bodies, through the occult, and things like that, which are otherwise conventionally not considered to be, like it's not science, but, it's also a way of knowing. And science is also welcome here, like we can really be open to receiving any wisdom that may support us while being conscious that we are sovereign beings, and all the information that comes our way we can sit with and make choices on how we interact with it. So yeah, that's one of the main intentions of this space. And to remember that, we are all oracles. We really all are oracles, because there is a part of us that is very, very human and very stupid and like, basic and just like a walking talking body bag. But there's also a part of us that is connected to source and is divinely guided, and for us to really step into that part of us and make the mundane also beautiful, to really connect to our human self in a beautiful way, and to step back into our sovereignty as we make choices consciously in our lives. So, yeah, these are some of the things I wanted to share. And and also the community aspect, I feel, because at this point, like there's so many of us who are experiencing these shifts. There are so many of us who have things we want to say. So this is really a podcast where we can all come on and share what we feel. And I want to kind of extend that intention towards this community, and this almost like collection of communities that we all are part of and are anchoring and creating. And for this to be a space where we are able to share things that we are noticing in our communities, and also influence each other to move towards our goals, to move towards um, deepening our values and our principles into our work and our personal lives. So that's one of the main intentions of this podcast as well. Um, and I don't know how it's going to happen, really. I don't know anything. All I know is that I'm holding these intentions and hoping that you are all also co holding this with me. And, and we're doing this together. So, yeah, that's, I think, what I wanted to share today. And yeah, we're in Jan now, it's 2022. And from our last podcast, just taking some themes into this, we were talking in the astrology aspect about how 2022 begins with a lot of intensity and retrogrades, and that there's a lot to be integrated. And the tarot aspect was talking about being really grounded, being in our bodies, filling up our cups so we can serve. The cosmic themes brought up a lot about relationships, which was again not a surprise because of the retrogrades. And the last bit was about womb healing and earth connection. So we're like taking those themes and kind of moving forward and seeing where we are now with regards to these things. And I'm just going to ask you, Shachi, if you want to begin, share with us the astrology updates or anything else that you want to bring in for us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, beginning of, I would say, even I would not even, I would say that the new year hasn't even begun. I think it's still this sort, it feels to me also very much like this kind of limbo state right now, also with yes, we have Mercury and Venus both retrograde, and I'll say a lot more about both of those things. But it's very much still a time of well, you're encouraged to, of course you can do whatever you want, but very much a time of reflection, a time of retrograde, so retrospect, review, reflect, revisit, all of that. But I want to start by speaking about Venus. Um, we spoke extensively about her last month, and she's been retrograde December 19th. And I would be starting December 9th, I would be very surprised if any of us have not felt these tremors of relationship, whether it's relationship with others, relationship with yourself. I think I see a smile somewhere. Yeah, so it's really you have been called, maybe you answered the call, maybe you have not, but everyone has been called to yeah, it's almost like you've been pulled to look at relationships in some way. And depending on what your rising sign is, I would encourage all of you to look up what your rising sign is. You might even know specifics, and we can help you find out about which kinds of relationships. But everyone has been touched by this. Venus is really the Cheney Nicholas, who I like a lot, and there I'll put a reference for her. She likes to say that Venus is the connective tissue in between all of us. So it's really this fiber is what has been vibrating and asking us to introspect for the last 30 days. I think we're done with the third of it, and there's maybe 10-ish days to go. So Jan 29th, end of this month, is when Venus goes direct. has also been through some sort of a purification process, passing through the sun last weekend. So you might already feel like you're coming out of whatever relationship stuff you've been through. There's a sense of starting to exit. This is to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Shachi. I'll say that again and towards the end as well. But yes, coming back. Um, yeah, and this is not so. I think I'd like to maybe even say these are very generic things I will say, and for each of you, especially starting with knowing what your rising sign is. But everyone has these planets in their chart, and they act like little keys to different parts of your psyche or your soul or your being, and and a great way to access that is to look at your own chart. But just generically speaking, I'll start to roll out updates for what's been happening and what's going to happen this month. Yeah, so Venus, a big call to relationships, how we relate, also love, also beauty. And so to just notice while she's still retrograde, what has emerged for you, what have you learned about relating either with yourself or the surroundings or the other. And um, and I guess for me the two big parts of relating are love and power. And so the truth that's held in those negotiations, whether it's with yourself and different parts of yourself, or whether it's with the other. So that's Venus. Mercury has also gone retrograde as of yesterday evening, and yeah, so any kind of retrograding is just it's a pivot. It's an invitation to a pivot inwards. It's also very much with Mercury an invitation to back up all your devices. So I have backed up my phone and my computer. You're very welcome. I invite you to do the same because. Yeah, one is it's good electronic hygiene, but also secondly, I think it's just um, I'm superstitious, but also very much it's maybe even in a ritualistic way to spend these 3 weeks that Mercury is retrograde every few months. And in fact, this year we have 4 retrogrades. There's one towards the end of the year that spills into 2023. Really using this time to be more inward. You are invited to be more inward. In fact, the sky is begging you to be more inward, to reflect. To see what, yeah, any kind of revisiting, maybe even reviewing your last year. But more importantly, I want to say, just 1 second, is there a way to reorganize my screen? Yes. Is that helpful to me? I cannot move a video while people are spotlighted. Wow, thanks. I guess, yeah, this is an example of what can happen. But yeah, sorry, I'm a bit distracted. Um, Yeah, so uh, I'm also ruled by Mercury, so if that helps you. Um, okay, so with Venus and Mercury both yes, now I remember what I was going to say about Mercury. So something quite interesting is happening with with the way Mercury is moving. Mercury is currently in Aquarius, very close to Saturn, and Saturn, as we know, as we also talked about last time, imposes restrictions, imposes limitations, or gives you this sense. He's sort of this. Jupiter is one of the grand uncles in the sky. Saturn is the second grand uncle in the sky. We will speak about Jupiter, who has just entered Pisces. He's the giving uncle. Saturn is the uncle, is the tough love uncle who will wants you to learn, but wants also you to build character and believes that difficulty is one way of building character. And so Saturn has been in Aquarius since December of 2020. Notice where Aquarius is in your chart, and that's where you are called to learn, to refine. And so the interesting thing about this Mercury retrograde is it's starting at this point where you are asked to, where Saturn is already trying to teach you something. And it's going to move back into Capricorn, where Venus has been retrograding. So there is a connection between the two retrogrades, between the relationships that you've been asked, that you all of us have been called, whether we've answered the call or not is different, but all of us have been called to look at our relationships in some way. Mercury is retrograding back there into this area where Venus and Pluto also have been dancing. So you might find a double ask in that sense: to review, to reflect, answer it. And then with that information, with that collecting from the depths, Mercury will come back into Aquarius and join Saturn there, and the lessons will be integrated. So again, this is very generic. See where this is for you, and and if you even know your rising sign, type it out, and I will tell you where it is for you in your chart, and what types of lessons, what types of relationships, what types of refinements you are being asked to make. Yeah, and Mercury goes direct on Feb 3rd. So for the next 3 weeks, this is what the invitation is. Um, okay, so we're still talking about review. The third thing that's asking us to continue reviewing is the nodes. So the nodes are two. They're not planets. They're not stars. They are 2 points in the sky where, when the sun and moon cross them on new moon and full moon days, we have eclipses. So they are two very potent points in the sky. They are directly opposite opposite each other. In our own charts, they are extremely powerful. And in fact, when I do readings for people, this is where I start, because it really points to where the soul has come from and where the soul is going. So in a sense, the purpose of the soul. And so these points, they keep shifting across the sky. Every 18 months, they shift into another house. And this shift is happening on the 18th of January. And this shift happens every 18 months. So again, it's an invitation to review how the last 18 months have been for you. And with eclipses, just like, there's a sense of the light is hidden, eclipsed, and then there's a rebirth in some sense. So each time there's an eclipse, something new is revealed. And so all of these eclipses were happening in Gemini and Sagittarius. Notice where that is for you. And some of us can help you find that. And now they're moving into Taurus and Scorpio. And so that's where the eclipses in the next 1.5 years is going to be. So again, great invitation to review what have been the lessons, what's been uncovered in terms of Gemini and Sagittarius over the last 18 months for you. Sunidhi, Pisces rising, beautiful, grand, and this year is for Pisces risings, because Jupiter, and I'll speak about that briefly. Jupiter has just entered Pisces, and I'll be very happy to hear about how it's been for you. But this is your time; take it. It's really a blessing. But with Pisces rising, then Aquarius is in your 12th house, and so the 12th house. If I may, I'll say it's my favorite house. I'm biased, we all are. The 12th house is the house of the unknown, the divine, the hidden, the marginalized. So so hospitals, monasteries, jails, anything that society rejects, pain, loss, grief, trauma, all of that is in Aquarius. And so your Saturn right now has been in Aquarius since December 2020. Tough lessons. I can't say it's been an easy time. We have 2 Leo risings. We'll talk about that next. Aarti, time me. Please say when. Yeah. So for Pisces, for Pisces rising Aquarius in 12th house, lessons are being taught in very potent lessons. Potent lessons also don't come easily, especially with Saturn in the 12th house, and it's going to be here for all of this year. So yeah, just I guess a lot of rest, unconscious depth work. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already happening through your body. Saturn will make it happen, but even to engage with it more consciously, writing down dreams, listening deeply to your body, a good somatic practice, those kinds of things. Yeah, somebody saying something? Yeah, and so now to really watch the next 3 weeks, Mercury is going from your 12th house to the 11th house of community and friends, where anyway Venus is doing its dance with relationships. So also notice over the last 30 days, 25-ish days, and also for the next 2 weeks when Venus is retrograde, what are you being asked to learn in regards to your relationship with community, friends, groups, people, and how this is connecting to your unconscious, your depths. This will start to be clear. And this could be totally off the mark depending on if there's super dramatic things going on the rest of your chart, will be dilute compared to everything else, but it may or may not resonate. So take it with salt as always. But I do want to say for Pisces rising, Jupiter has broken free from the clutches. So it's the 2 uncles were together all of this time in Aquarius. And Jupiter has now been allowed to break off and enter Pisces where he belongs. Jupiter is at home there. And so one thing, and I think Frank will touch upon this a little bit later, is this is the year of the divine. And every year and everything is for the divine, yes. But this is especially the sacred is calling in a big way and is breaking through and will break through in a very big way. I want to say Neptune is also in Neptune is also in Pisces, and the last time Jupiter and Pisces, Jupiter and Neptune. So Jupiter and Neptune both are at home in Pisces. Pisces is the depth, it's the ocean, it's the water. The invitation is for all of us to be fish, swim back to the Great Mother in some sense. And the last time in Pisces, these two planets being at home in Pisces was in the 1850s, and I think that was a great art and spiritual renaissance. And so we have the opportunity to experience this after such a long time. So with Pisces rising, this is happening in your first house. I'm just very happy for you. And again, I'm not saying things are easy. We're in the third wave of COVID, so all of this is yeah. But with Jupiter being there in Pisces, something deeper and quite beautiful, I'm hoping, it's really coming to light. A word of caution is that with great beauty comes great illusion, I guess is my Spider-Man attempt. But it can be very potent and very heady. So we want to be grounded when we connect with the spiritual. Yeah, so it's really with both these planets in water, it's we don't want to drown in the ocean. We want to learn how to swim in these oceans and also support each other to do that. So really trying to stay grounded as we engage in these Piscean activities. Okay, so we're running out of time, so we won't do Leo rising, but I'm happy to talk to you extensively about it later. So again, invitation to review Venus retrograde relationships, Mercury retrograde, review in general, but also wherever Aquarius is in your chart. And the nodes are shifting into Taurus and Scorpio. So what have you learned over the last 18 months? It's an encouragement to review. And yeah, just a few more things I want to speak about before we end. There's a very sweet but very emotional full moon coming up in Cancer, Monday night, Tuesday morning, 17th night, 18th morning. It's in Cancer. The moon, I say it's beautiful because the moon is at home in Cancer. Moon rules Cancer, but that also means that it will likely be emotional. So I'd say, and it's never enough to, I can't say this enough, is to don't think your feelings, feel your feelings. I leave a nice Instagram post I like about that in the chat after I'm done speaking. But yeah, really stay with the feelings, honor them, acknowledge them. They are not here to be annotated or editorialized by your mind. They are here to be felt, feel them. Yeah, and just tide it over. And then after that, you can annotate and editorialize as much as you like, but not during the full moon. So there's that. I think there's just one more thing I wanted to say. Yeah, it's interesting to me that Jan 18th, when the nodes move from Gemini, Sagittarius to Taurus, Scorpio, they also move into this place where Uranus has been for a long time. And on that day, Uranus goes direct. And Uranus is the rebel of the sky, the upstart. So there's all this energy going direct. And so you might feel this sort of just things like that kind of energy is something is changing in that regard. So just notice how that time is for you. I think that might be all. Aarti, am I missing something? Yeah, just add if you feel like anything else needs to be said. Yeah, and I'm happy to take questions.
I'm just like, wow. Oh, thanks for sharing that. I think, especially what you said about Uranus going direct, it's like, wow, like the node shift and boom. Um, yeah, very exciting times. And just checking the chat, like a lot of people have shared their rising signs and responses. Please feel free to get in touch with Shachi. She's really happy to, like just give you like all the juiciness to tell you like how to see your chart. Yeah. All right. Mm. Would it be okay for me to do the tarot part now?
Yeah.
Cool. Also, this time I was just thinking, I will share with you the collective reading, and I'm going to ask you guys to help me find questions to pick for the collective, like after I'm done. So I'll first share the one we usually do, message for humanity, and just what's coming through for us as a collective. And then if you have any ideas based on what Shachi shared astrologically, if you want to throw me some tarot questions, which of course are going to be beneficial for everybody here and everybody listening, and then I will do those card pulls live, and maybe 3 questions or something like that. So yeah, guys, if you have questions, put it in the chat. All right, so last month the main card was Get Grounded, and I think 7 of Pentacles, which was about filling our cup and sharing, and now it's like asking us to deepen that. We have the card Inner Temple. Yeah, it's so beautiful, and really tuning into the portal of our hearts and devotion, connecting again to the energy of Pisces, and really making our connection to spirit, our connection to the universe, God, goddess, nature, however you connect to the larger power, like really stepping into direct relationship with this energy through personal practices or through just belief. One of the things also last time Aakanksha had spoken about was, like we have some amount of hope, and then that hope turns into trust, saying, okay, you know what, this is all right, it's going to be there. And then there's belief, because you're like, okay, you know what, things have happened for a certain amount of time, and now there's this belief that, okay, I'm taken care of. But then there's faith, like when you're just like, you know what, I'm like in service, and therefore everything's going to align for me. So for us to really transition to that point where we are so connected to our heart space and devoted to ourselves, to our purpose, that we are just in flow. So it can either happen through a practice, which again, like we will speak about, Frank and both Neetu will probably, be able to make it more tangible. But for now, like all I'm saying is coming into our inner temple is one of the major themes for right now. Also keeping in mind that it's still a time for reflection with all the retrogrades. So a lot is being integrated. You may not know the answers to many things. Now may not be the time to jump into action, but to just be aware of what these actions may be, just allowing it to brew. And the other card we have is 9 of Pentacles, which is a card that is about really being proud of ourselves, knowing that we've done a lot of work on ourselves. Like we've harvested, like now it's time to harvest, the sunflowers we've grown all year. And the full moon's also a time for harvest, the one that's coming on Monday. So, but this card was reversed, you know. So I feel like a lot of us are struggling to realize just how much effort we've put in on ourselves, like the fucking like craziness that we have endured our whole lives, and especially the last few years, the amount of inner turmoil we've had to sit through to really, like polish the coal and turn it into diamonds. The work is done, guys. The work is done. You no longer need to toil in the sun. Like just like smell the sunflowers already. Like it is here. Whatever this thing is that we've been working on, it could be up ourselves, it could be a project, it could be relationship, it could be health. Just recognizing for a moment that we have reached a point of significant shift. And if I have to say this for the collective as well, like we have reached a point where our consciousness has risen to a certain level where we can step into something that Shetty always says, like Hydra, where we are all functioning as one organism in some way. We are one soul in some form connected to source and in different bodies, and we can experience life like this. And of course, without bypassing the human reality and the relational aspects, but really understanding that we are consciousness experiencing itself. So that's some of the things I wanted to say about these two collective energies. And if you guys have any further questions for me to pull for us, please feel free to share it. I'm thinking otherwise just doing a monthly for the next month, physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental kind of 4 card pulls. if you guys have any question specifically that you think might benefit us to get guidance, please let me know and I'll pull. All right, so I'm gonna go with physical and like health, mental, and what's going on in our thought realms, and emotionally, what we can use to navigate these times. Oh, okay. And spiritually, message for us. Interesting. Um, so physically, we have the card Strife, 5 of Wands. So it tells me that some amount of attention needs to be placed on grounding, on our bodies, on being present, also connecting back to last month's themes. Like we are still needing to really anchor, whether it is through routines, through practices, through really sitting with difficult emotions in our bodies, breathing through it, releasing it, whatever it may be, whatever your way is. Physically, there seems to be resistance. There seems to be maybe two voices in our head. One where we want to connect to our bodies, be grounded, but there's also resistance to it. So maybe something like that's coming up. And to see both these, to see the resistance neutrally, to see, okay, what's really holding me back, and allowing that next voice to emerge from there. I'm just going to pull another one to see what kind of resolution we're being asked to move towards. Okay. I'm going to share a practice, Neetu, if it's okay, one that you had shared in the group about breaking through on a body level. Yeah, it feels like, because the card that I pulled really reminds me of that. So yeah, so this is a card that came in response to the physical level. And something that Neetu said is that, on a daily basis, like if we allow ourselves to take a moment to notice the discomfort, the blockages, things that make us feel like we're shrinking, make us feel like we're small, just tuning into that, acknowledging it, and then allowing ourselves to really feel this power. As you can see, like she's reaching for the stars, there's fire and passion under her, there's a tiger, and I connect this to the energy of Durga that I feel has been very present. So yeah, so really like stepping into that warrior energy and breaking free, like knowing that there's a part of you that has the capacity to like just be that expansive power. So yeah, just allowing that on a physical level, because when we use visualizations, when we use like these moments of really alchemizing the stuckness and the strife we feel, it's easier for our mind to allow our body to move beyond it, because physical health is something that is not things that we can shift easily, right? It's very tangible. But when we use visualizations and things like that, it allows our physical body to also move closer to the other aspects, which maybe, we may be thriving emotionally. So to allow our physical body to get there. And yes, that's what I wanted to share about that. And okay, mentally, change. This is crazy because I know I'm experiencing a ton of change in my life right now, and it's causing me to feel like, okay, there are so many things, so many fears, and so many changes, and how am I going to navigate it? But as you can see, like he's in a desert and there's barely anything around him. So, it's scary. Change is scary, uncertainty is scary. We're experiencing this on a global level. So allowing that to be felt, and at the same time knowing that we've got this. You can see he's balancing and juggling this yin and yang symbol of infinity, and everything's taken care of. Like he's closing all the loops. And yes, it is scary, but it's also balanced. Both his feet are on the ground. He's allowing himself to be with both the aspects, like maybe both these aspects. Yeah, there is some discomfort, there is some stress, but also I am infinite. So maybe mentally also to remind ourselves to ground, to remember that we got this. We have put in all the work. There is nothing to worry about. All we have to do is connect back into our inner temple, connect to the strength that is within us, within our hearts. Yeah. Emotionally, we have the card 10 of Cups, which is beautiful. which reminds me that, you know, we need to remember that there is an abundance of connection during this time when we may be feeling isolated and lonely. One of the themes we've also been speaking about regularly in this space, that you know, there is this deep sense that the air is really thin up here, like, you know, when you're doing this much inner work and like you're so dedicated and you're like constantly like saying, oh, you know what, nobody gets me. But to remember that, you know, how many people are on this call? There are 11 of us right here. So to remember that there is this connection, there is this kinship, there is this community, there is emotional support available to us, right? And to remember that it's around, it's here. You know, you can't deny it. On those days when you feel lonely and you feel like there's nobody, just see if there's somebody you can reach out to. Um, you know, and it's also maybe our responsibility to um, fill up our own cups, of course, be there for ourselves, anchor in a temple, and also reach out. There's this give and take dance of like really showing up, making sure I am taking care of myself, and then I reach out, support others, reach out for support for ourselves, that kind of thing. So yeah, abundance of emotional safety. Yeah. And lastly, spiritually, again, very similar to this card, you know, reminds me that we have reached some part of culmination, victory, completion of our journeys. And this card again has a similar energy of realizing that we are here, you know, like time has come, and to allow ourselves to celebrate. Like you can see she's just freely, like, you know, in her body, happy and just celebrating her where she is right now. So I think we all deserve to celebrate a bit, you know, on where we are. Of course, there may be a long way to go, and yeah, you know, there's a lot of work we need to do on ourselves together, you know, to bring forth all the magic that's coming through. But yeah, you know, this year is going to be challenging us to really step up and come together in ways we never thought of, and to allow that to happen in the best way possible, because we can't even imagine what that way may be. You know, we don't know. And in the middle of that uncertainty, to hold each other's hands and say, you know what, we got this. We're gonna do this. I don't know how, but we're gonna do this. So yeah, and since there are no questions, I am just going to share a chant with you guys that just came through. It's a quote by this poet called Macarena, and I can't pronounce his surname. I don't remember it right now. But when I was swimming in the ocean, which you know, with Jupiter and Pisces, and like so much like water and womb energy, I was really connecting to the womb of Mother Earth and asking her to like give me music and song. And so then this tune just came through for this part of this poem, and I'm just going to sing it. I will believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. I will believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. I will believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. I will believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. I will believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. Mm. 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 Thank you. And with that, I'm just going to ask you, Frank, to come in and share your sense on what you're noticing around you and take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Aarti. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with you all. So, Aarti, the chant that you just sang for us reminded me of this quote by Marianne Williamson, which is about our deepest fear. And she says that, you know, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, Rather, that our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I work as a habit coach, so I help people build habits. And one of the habits that I find myself helping people build more and more of late is a connection with the sacred. This could be, this is mostly for me, it's taking the form of helping people to learn to pray. And prayer is one of the ways in which we connect to the sacred. And we also go to spaces which are sacred. And I think, what I see more and more with people around me is that there is not much of a connection to the sacred anymore. Life seems to have become more mundane, meaning to say we are unable to find the sacred around us. We are unable to find the sacred in ourselves. And what I am sensing, and this part of this podcast is about cosmic themes. What I'm sensing is a deep longing for the sacred to come forth, a deep longing within people to reconnect with the sacred as well, but also it feels like the sacred itself is, in a way, the divine itself is reaching out, and it wants to get embodied, right? That is generally speaking what I am sensing in terms of cosmic themes right now. There was another thing that I was inspired to share as well, which is around knowing. In the introduction to this podcast, Aarti spoke about how the way of know. We assume that there is only one way to know something. That is, the sky is blue. Okay, that is one way to know it, right? But there are other ways of knowing as well. And I guess looking at it from a, let's say, a more left brain perspective, I'm going to actually just read something out here. This is written. These are the ideas of a philosopher called John Vervaeke, and it's we speak about decolonizing, right? Decolonizing essentially would be that we've got all these ideas which are imposed on us from the West, broadly speaking. But even in the West right now, there is a bursting forth of what you would consider non-Western ideas. And I think John Vervaeke, who's actually a white man, is also a philosopher, and he's talking about these 4 ways of knowing. And I think this is a good testament to that fact. So I'm actually going to share with you these 4 ways to know. The first is, as I said, propositional knowing, which is knowing that gold is a mineral or the sky is blue. This is the dominant way of thinking, right? See, we think that the only way to know is to know as a proposition, as a fact, right? That is generally how the world thinks about knowing something. But there is another way that is also pretty prevalent, which is procedural knowing, which is to say knowing how to do something, right? So knowing how to ride a bike, knowing how to catch a ball, knowing how to speak. And broadly speaking, the first 2, that the propositional, that is knowing that this is something and knowing how to do something. These are broadly speaking, the most common ways of knowing that are available to us. But there are 2 other ways of knowing, right? So these 2 are perspectival and participatory knowing. So these are more closer to something like, what we would feel if you go to the woods, you immerse yourself in nature and you close your eyes and you just feel into it and you just listen to the birds, you feel the air, you take in the smells. There is a knowledge there as well, right? So I'm going to read this out word for word because it's worth actually using the words that John Vervaeke uses here. When we take a risk and stop trying to run, but instead listen to what's around us, the voices, the growls, the creak of the wood and the leaf. When we do this, we are tapping into our perspectival knowing. It is your situation awareness, your sense of being here and now. this way of knowing is relative to the state of mind you're in. It doesn't feel the same to be lost in the woods when you're drunk or tired or in love. I'll read that again. It doesn't feel the same to be lost in the woods when you're drunk or tired or in love. Your cognition is the state. Your cognition in this state is geared towards what's relevant or salient in your world right now. That is, your perspective is shaping what you know. And finally, as I said, there's 4 ways of knowing, and the 4th way of knowing is participatory knowing. And I believe this is the one that's the most, can be described as essentially the shamanic way of knowing. So as we listen deeply, we might notice something else. The world can hear us too. Owls watch us from the trees. Beasts smell us as they prowl in the mist. We are embedded within these woods. Coming deeply into this awareness brings us into a participatory knowing. It is the hardest to define because it straddles our subjective experience and objective reality, leading to an experiential back and forth, which is called transjective. But the beauty of this is that, you know, the participatory knowing is the core. It's the real, the ultimate way of knowing, because you know it is related to our full sense of being, connected and in dialogue with reality. It is the fundamental attunement between you and the world, and it is this very attunement that makes your perspectival knowing possible, which in turn makes your procedural knowing possible, and which in turn informs your propositional knowing. So everything that you know, as you know, the sky is blue, the gold, that gold is a mineral, all of that is based on your participation in this cosmic dance. And in a way, connecting it back now to what I started with, reconnecting to the sacred, and the sacred wanting to also burst forth. I believe we are called to explore more and more this 4th way of knowing, which is the participatory way of knowing. We are called to participate, to actually get out of our chairs, get into action. I believe that is what I would like to say on cosmic themes.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. Would you want to say something more? Is that all that you have for us today?
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Aarti.
All right. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And while you were saying the last bit, you know, like it reminded me of this. 1 second. Yeah, it reminded me of this, you know. This is, I feel like how when we get stuck in one way of knowing, like, okay, my body is going through pain, let's say, for example, and that is one way of knowing. And then we allow that participatory knowing and like really, like, you know, there's so much more like that ability to be present in each moment and notice things and just allow our innate wisdom, communion with divine, to really like allow that same experience to break free from that strife. And I felt like specifically mentioning because sometimes when we come to the inner temple, it's so hard to be present, right? Like we want to escape, we want to be in that distraction, but how can we really come into what is? And I feel like what you shared really allowed us to understand what are the different ways of knowing, how can we really be in that moment, and allow ourselves to stay there and not go into you know, like the facts or the tangible things, and really know that we have access to so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Neetu, would you like to go?
What if I said no?
That's cool, dude. This is all about emergence. You're a sovereign being.
I'm starting off with no words. So I want to first invite everybody to go into that place in themselves. It has been a lot of different ideas and concepts and sharing about larger themes. Yeah, personally right now I am tired. And it's very hard to step into bigger movement. And I don't know where all of you are, but if you can all join me in the space, and from there, I can go into whatever needs to come. Coming back into body, feeling your sit bones, feeling your shoulders. Breath, head. And going into the inner sight, being in the darkness inside your body in this moment. And seeing where you feel something along the lines of where I am. Seeing where you feel tired and still. And where there are no words. Seeing if, as you listen to whatever comes out as I speak, if you can stay there, and really it doesn't matter if you're making sense of the words I'm saying, because at least for this next bit, it's not important to listen with your minds. Yeah, my invitation is for us to be in this space of rest that is easier to access when you access tiredness. Wherever in your being you're feeling tiredness, through that come into rest and stillness and no words. Something that I wanted to say as I was listening to everything is, yes, story is very important, and coming to a place like this to receive stories, to orient into the new world. And when I say story, I mean any word, there's a story. Like any word is a story of that direct experience of reality. And any concept and any thought and any idea, any sharing in words of what's going to happen or even what is happening is a story. And that's where we orient ourselves. And that is also the basis of how we experience everything, because that's your belief system. That's our belief systems. And through our belief systems, we filter out how we see and experience the world. And so story is really extremely important for context, for orientation, and for just some sense of who am I? Who is everybody else? What is this place that I'm in? What am I here to do? How do I make sense of reality? And the other piece that is just as extremely important is anchoring in reality itself, which is pre-making sense. And as you receive all of these larger themes, Where is it landing in your being? Where something actually resonates and has something for you. Not getting lost in all of this bigger information. And I'm talking broadly, I'm not just talking about in this space, because as everybody's been talking about in the next month, but also really the next decade, it's going to be a lot of chaos and a lot of upending and a lot of new things in terms of thoughts and experience that are being opened up. And it's easy to get what is the word? Just swept off your feet and ungrounded. And no matter what anybody else says is what is happening, or what you should focus on, or what is truth in the next however long we have, coming back to where is that resonating in your being, where something feels important and where something seems true in your own self. Where do you experience truth? How do you recognize truth in your own self? And as you're in your being and not in your mind in this moment, can you feel that in your body somewhere? And using that as where you're anchored, and through which you can anchor into what needs to happen in your lived reality in this moment. Because only in this moment do you know the truth for right now. Yeah, I think that's really the main thing I want to leave us with, that with all of the craziness of the world, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that's going to unfold and is unfolding, coming back to self, pre-mind, sensing into where reality is and what's being pulled forward to do through your own sense of truth. I think I'm over time. I wasn't keeping track of time, Aarti. How much time do I have? Or did I just get into my section? Oh, great, perfect. All right. Let's see, from that space, something to share about myself is I offer this work called Wild Peace, and the structure of the work is using the mediums of voice work, movement work, story, and wilderness, integrating all of those into a medium to come into receiving guidance from earth, spirit, and body and soul. And through that, being anchored in something that is not dependent on any of these outer things. And therefore being able to be in our power as we come into the new world, where the normal things that we depend on and anchor in are all falling away. That's part of the work that I offer. And as part of this, and as a big culmination moment for myself, after 6 to 7 years of working towards arriving in a certain place, I just went into an immersion, spent like 7 days in the desert, fully arriving at this place where I'm anchored and grounded in the strength of truth and light. And when I did that, some of the things that happened were honestly incredulous. There was one big thing that came right before the end of the culmination, which was we were at the border of, I'm in the US right now, and we were at the border of Arizona and Mexico, which is the border of US. And there's a lot of quote unquote illegal border crossings that happen there. So it's a comparatively dangerous area. But I was called to that desert. And one important piece to take away from this is listening into where you need to be physically on earth, which land is calling you. And through that land, you will be shown what you need to do. Because we are not separate from earth, we are earth. And we are agents of creating certain kinds of shifts, working on behalf of earth. And in order for us to successfully do that, knowing which patch of earth is calling us and where we're actually anchored physically, and which patch of earth has some task or project for us. And that may be, I don't know any of you, so I don't know where you're at in your journey, and that may be something that happens much, like, I don't know, few years ahead. But just thinking of that idea and sensing through your body and sensing into where you need to be physically will get us there. And so me sensing, I ended up in this dangerous zone and later found out that I was in the thick of where the drug trafficking people, they use the illegals as like drug mules. And the exact place where they drop them off is where we ended up in the desert. And I did not know that. And I don't think I would have chosen that if I knew that. So the earth kind of didn't give me that information, just kind of pulled me to that place, and it felt right that that's where we were. And there was a whole thing that happened with the border patrol people, and I was laying down under this tree, going into my deep work and in the desert, and there was this helicopter that came and started circling me. There was a whole thing. And sharing this from the space of when something happens, you're in a dangerous place, you're in the middle of the desert, there's all of these police people that turn up with their guns. And you're not a US citizen, and you're at the border. Or in that same situation, instead, if we'd come in contact with people trying to cross the border, or if we'd come in contact with the drug trafficking people, what happens? What do you do in response? And a normal reaction is fear. And one of the things that gets us out of ourselves and into our minds is fear. The other thing that gets us out of ourselves and into our minds is being lost, not knowing where you're anchored, and therefore having to make sense of it with the mind. So the first part that I said, figure out where you're anchored in yourself, and then figure out where you're anchored in earth. That keeps us like sensing and in our body and being. And the second part is, how can I stay anchored in that when the thing that I'm most scared of is what shows up in my face? Because part of what's going to happen is very much unknown in the next decade. And how do we prepare for our houses getting flooded or burnt through forest fires, or the government getting much more and more authoritarian, and there being a lot of activism and fights and death? How do we prepare for the scariest things as the old world topples down, so that we are still anchored in absolute love and oneness, and knowing that that is truth? even if right now somebody's pointing a gun at my face. And so first thing is just figuring out how to be anchored in your body and in earth. And always, always sensing into where does it feel real in my being? And where does it feel real in relationship to earth? And the second thing is, now how do I know that this is reality? Love and oneness is reality. So that when the old world shows up in full force, what you're able to do is break it open instead of get sucked up into it. Yeah, and knowing that that's something you wouldn't be doing alone. Like another big thing that happened through this immersion thing that I was in right before that was this whole racism thing. It was me and my friend, and she felt like we had to visit this cave where there was very powerful energy. And this other person decided to come with us, and turned out he had very unexamined racism in him. And so we had to still be with him and then drive him back half an hour. And because I wasn't reacting, he was getting bigger and bigger in his racism. And and the really cool thing is I experienced this breakthrough of power and joy and love and liberation, because I was anchoring into my being, I was anchoring into earth, and I felt that land that we had visited at my back, and I felt spirit at my back. And I knew like I was, on the winning side, because everything is on this side right now. Like we're on the other side where the power is in the earth and spirit. And if you're anchored in earth, and that land where you're called to be has your back, and you can tap into spirit, and spirit has your back. Yeah, it was pretty incredible, the kind of power that I was in while this guy was in like heights of his reaction. This feels really vague, but the point that I'm trying to say is what I just asked us to think about preparing for, in being ready to break open the worst parts of the old world in our face. Just reminding that that's not something we are doing alone. That is something that the humongous power that we will have in order to do that is because of this interconnection between all of us and the power between all of us, this network of oneness with all of us who are doing the work. And it's not just human beings, it's a lot of invisible beings and forces that are working. And it's the spirit of earth and spirit itself, which are like huge, humongous powers. And so some of the things that I said might sound really scary, and knowing that the power that we have at our backs and with each other is so much bigger than that. Yeah, and so much bigger than that, that we can step into this adventure as adventure and not as something scary. And we can experience joy and mirth and laughter and ridiculousness, because both me and my friend, while we were still sitting in the desert after everything that happened, and we decided to complete the thing, regardless of fear of possibility. And we were laughing. We were laughing the whole time. And that's what's possible. The powers are so big that it's absolutely, actually completely safe. So we can laugh. I guess that's what I have, and it's time.
Thanks for sharing that. I think this is the first time we brought like the perspective of what's going on in the world into this podcast. I was waiting for that. And thanks for doing that, like with reality, but also reminding ourselves of the fact that we're not alone and there's so much power, that we can wield together with the unseen realms as well. And it suddenly reminded me of The Matrix. For those of you who've seen the movie, I've been like rewatching them. And it really just feels like that, no? To remind ourselves that we are in control of being grounded in our reality. And thanks for also bringing us back into our bodies after all that, we uncovered. It feels like it's now here. And yeah, it just feels so amazing also, like to one sec, add you guys to like experience this, right? Like we all just like came and like did this all together. Didn't even know, like it was so unknown, and here we are, at the end of like almost an hour and 15 minutes, just like sharing our little bits, like cooking together with our ingredients. And yeah, it's just been really magical in some way. And just gonna ask you guys if you want to say anything in conclusion, or if any one of us feels like leading somewhat of a closing practice, to just like, yeah, summarize anything.
I don't have a practice, but I want to offer this, and if somebody has a practice for it, basically being anchored in power through knowing in self, in personal being, but being anchored in power and therefore being able to stay in presence and curiosity in the face of something that might shake us out of it. So a practice that can like help us do that, if anybody has something.
I know there's a lot of very cool people also listening right now. If you guys want to also lead us through a beautiful closing practice, or any of us here also, please like feel free. Because like one thing about like coming together and working as a collective is that sometimes one or a few of us will like be told, come on, spirit will tell us, okay, it's your turn. So if any of you are being tapped please like let us know, and please lead us through this practice, or any practice that you feel we need. Yeah.
How much time do we have?
Maybe like 5 minutes for the closing, and then we can hang out for a bit and close officially.
Would you like to do Wim Hof breathing, breath work basically? Is that one round, obviously, but that's an option. Aarti?
Yeah, I guess we could do that, because it'll also take us away from the mind and like really into our bodies. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I just because what Nivedita said is essentially anchor us in our own power, essentially, right? And you know this breathing technique, or this breathwork modality, is called power breathing, or also named after the guy who kind of popularized it around the world. His name is Wim Hof. But yes, it's simply power breathing. And okay, so I will guide you guys into this. Here's how it works. I'll just brief you about how it works. So we'll just be doing one round. So we start with about 30 cycles of breathing in, breathing out. So what we can do is breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. So we do that about 30 cycles of that. I will guide you guys on that. And when we reach the 30th cycle, you breathe out fully, like, let all the air go out of your body and hold your breath. All right. So it is possible to hold your breath for up to 1.5 minutes. And you're going to trust me on this, that you can hold your breath for 1.5 minutes after you do 30 cycles of breathing in and breathing out. But it's not necessary that you hold it for 1.5 minutes. At any point, so you hold, right? So you exhale and hold. And then at any point you feel like breathing in, take it in as if it's your first breath, like fully take it in and hold for another 10 to 15 seconds. So again, just to summarize, 1 round of Wim Hof breathing, or 1 round of power breathing, which is 30 cycles of breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth. And then on the 30th cycle, we just breathe out, let all the air out, and hold for about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. And at any point when you feel like, okay, I can't hold my breath anymore, I really need to take an in breath, you take a powerful in breath as if it's your first breath ever, and then hold that for about 10 seconds, right? Feel that in your body, and then exhale again. And that's the completion of 1 round. Let me just set up a cue so that it's easier for me as well to guide you guys. All right, just sit comfortably. Let your feet be solidly on the floor. You can close your eyes if you wish to, or you can keep them open. Either way is okay. Relax your shoulders. Make sure your back is straight. All right, take a deep breath in and let it out. Take another deep breath in and let it out. All right, now take a deep breath in, breath out, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in, breathe out. 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 In, 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 out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. In, out. Breathe in, out. Breathe in fully, breathe out fully. Breathe in fully, breathe out fully. Breathe in fully, breathe out. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in, breathe out. 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 Breathe in, breathe out fully and hold. Just be present to how you are feeling in your body right now. Feel your heartbeat and slow it down. Be present to your body making contact with the chair or the floor, and just hold your breath for as long as you can. Whenever you feel the need to breathe in, there is no urgency, but whenever you feel the need to breathe in as if it is the first breath you have ever taken. Savor the air. All right, that's about 2 minutes of breath hold. If some of you are still holding your breath, you can now take a deep breath in and let it go. All right, that was power breathing. And thank you for participating in this experience.
Thanks, Frank. It feels like such a beautiful way to close all the portals that we opened today, and really come into our bodies. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for listening to that voice that made you join us. And with that, I'm going to close this space officially, stop the recording.